All right. SNAFU Podcast number 7 with Helen Wallbridge from the Maritime Archaeology Trust. How are you doing, Helen?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Yes, I'm doing great. I'm really excited to talk to you because today we're going to talk about the D-Day wall, or the D-Day brick wall, or uh,
The American Wall.
the American wall. Exactly. You are the leader of a project that digitally records the inscriptions of a brick wall in Southampton, where American soldiers carved their names before their embarkation to Europe, and that is, in my opinion, uh, an interesting project. But also, the wall itself. I can imagine how many stories are behind that wall. Uh,
Yeah.
Speaking, how do you say that? As a figure of speech, not literally,
hmm
but yeah. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank
Um,
you for inviting me.
yeah, I would like to talk about the history of the wall, and
Yep.
basically, what is the D-Day? What is the wall? What is the American Wall? Can you?
Okay, so if I just tell you a little bit about Southampton during the Second World War, and then we'll understand the context of this story.
Sure.
So, as in the First World War, Southampton was a major port of embarkation during World War One and World War Two, and the whole city was basically one big military camp. It was also the home of the Spitfire. The Spitfire was designed and built here, and it was heavily bombed as well. Um, so during the war, we had all these soldiers coming down to 4 embarkation hards to embark for D-Day. Near one of those hards was this 19-metre long section of brick wall, and in it are carved about 70 names that we can read, and about 15, 20 more that we can't quite read at the moment. And we've been researching with lots of volunteers helping us, researching the stories behind these men.
Wow. That is incredible. I have the third slide here on screen.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting to me that there's only Americans that have inscribed their names on there.
Yeah, that's quite strange. I don't understand why that would only be Americans, but that's why we're calling it the American Wall.
Right. And why specifically this wall? Do you have any idea about it?
No, the building itself was no great importance. It was actually the town mortuary. It's just a little bit taller than a man would be. And all we can think is that they were just waiting alongside this wall. The docks were really busy. They were just a bit jammed up, waiting for it to clear. And just while they stood there waiting, they just carved their names.
Hmm.
One of the groups, they all seem to be drivers. So I wonder if their vehicles were just literally parked next to this wall and they all just got off and had a smoke, drink, wrote the names.
Right. What and why is the what is the Maritime Archaeology Trust doing with this wall at the moment?
There's lots of talk about physical preservation, but that's very difficult. So we're focusing on a digital preservation. So by taking lots of photographs and using a technique called photogrammetry, we can make a 3D model of the wall, and that's uploaded on our website. It needs a lot of work at the moment, so I've got a year's worth of research to load into it. If you have a look at slide 6, I think, you can see the 3D model there that we've made on our website. So this is going to have a list of names. You're about to look at the name, find out the story behind the man and the photos that we've managed to find, and a close-up
Wow.
of the inscription.
Yeah, that's truly incredible. I believe parts of the wall have been removed that also had names on them.
Yeah, that's right. If you have a look at slide 8, you can see Sydney Greenwald. His brick was actually carved in a house opposite. There were a number of carvings in these houses opposite, which were demolished in the 1970s. And those bricks were luckily saved by a local citizen who realised what they meant and campaigned for them to be saved. And Greenwald's bricks in the museum, if you can see it on the screen there, the inscription says "On way to France, Sydney Greenwald is ASN, USA, Bronx, New York." And we've managed to find a little photo of him there.
Right.
So he was actually born to a Jewish family in Czechoslovakia, and they emigrated to New York in 1934.
Wow.
And then he joined the combat engineers of the Third Army, and he landed on Omaha Beach from Southampton on D-Day +6. So he's the
Wow.
earliest brick we know, and he's also the most intricately carved brick.
Wow. You said the earliest, so that means there's quite a big range
Yeah.
on the different men and at the time when they carved the names in there.
So on D-Day itself, most of the Americans were leaving from the West Country, like Weymouth, Portland. So it was only just like in a few days after D-Day that the Americans were leaving from Southampton. So I say he's the earliest, D-Day +6,
Wow.
and it goes right through to 1945. A big group between October and December 44 that were going out to the Bulge.
Right. Oh yeah, the 106. The was
Mm-hmm,
one of those.
106th, 99th.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that this is just we do a lot of research. I do a lot of research on personal stories, and it's interesting when you stand on the side and you know what happened. But this is such more physical evidence,
Mm.
which is why it's
When
archaeology.
you actually touch it and you can feel where they've actually carved their names, that really brings it
Exactly.
to life.
Exactly, and I think I think it's amazing that 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 you are digitally restoring all of it or preserving it. I think preserving
Preserving
is a
it,
better
yeah.
word. Um, you said you are the leader of this project. Why did you? How did you end up becoming the leader of this project?
I've been working for the Maritime Archaeology Trust for about 6 years, and I joined to do a World War One shipwreck project. And then when that finished, we were looking for new projects, and I knew of this wall and a lot of local concern about the fact that it might be eroding. So I put that forward as a project. We were lucky enough to get National Lottery Heritage funding to cover the costs. And we managed to get about 50 volunteers to help us research. So there's a lot of people involved with the project, but all together we're managing to find a lot of these stories.
Wow, what is one of the most interesting stories of the guys that you have recovered or found out?
Um, Cal Avery, if you see slide number 10, Cal Avery was quite a clear inscription, but try as hard as we could, we just couldn't find him in the military records at all. Every time we go to the wall, it changes. You can see different inscriptions. You see some inscriptions more clearly. And if it's a sunny day, they almost all disappear. So every time you go, it's different. And one particular day we went and the conditions were just perfect. And we saw a new part of his inscription. So underneath his name, then suddenly we saw AMER, Amer, red, and a cross symbol. And we realised he's with the American Red Cross. And we traced down that route, and he is a field director. So it's quite nice to see somebody that's not, your typical combat soldier being preserved
Right.
alongside all the other stories.
Wow.
We found that he was born in 1910 in New York, Yonkers. He worked at an orphanage. He was a director at the orphanage. And field directors were recruited from men that didn't ordinarily meet all the military requirements. So I noticed in the little photo we found he's wearing glasses. Maybe his eyesight wasn't quite good enough, possibly. So he was recruited into Red Cross and served as a field director alongside the combat troops.
Wow. Do you get in touch with family members of these soldiers?
Yeah, sometimes if we can. So if you look at the next slide, 11, Delbert Smith, he's a really good example. So Delbert's inscription was quite clear. D.W. Smith, Miss USA. I quite quickly found him on the 106th roster that we had.
Wow.
And when the researcher sent back the form I asked them to fill in, he said his wife's name was Ethel. And I thought, hang on, there's some ladies' names on that wall, but we kind of hadn't really thought too much about them. And I thought, I wonder where those names were. So I went back and looked, and Ethel was right next to Delbert. And then just above, you could see he'd written wife Ethel.
Wow.
I thought, well, that's really interesting. And then I was looking on Ancestry, and I found a family tree with some references to him. And I contacted the person, and she sent back a photo. I think you can see there.
Wow, yeah.
So it's Delbert and Ethel, and then there was the baby Nina.
Wow.
And I thought, I'll go back and check those names again. And then again, there was daughter Nina written. So you can see I've tried to annotate there.
Yeah.
Daughter Nina, wife Ethel, and Delbert Smith all together. So he'd written his whole family on the wall. Clearly what he was thinking about just as he was about to embark.
Wow.
That's just one of those ways it just unwraps really slowly, and it's really interesting.
Right. Did you ever how do the families respond? Do they know about it? I guess they don't know about it because it's just some random
No,
act from a soldier.
Yeah, none of them knew of the bricks. And the ones that we've contacted have just been really pleased that there's just been this little memory of them left behind somewhere.
Right. Wow. Will there be a physical monument near the wall, or are you guys working on that, or is it just a digital thing? Because I imagine a physical monument would be just as interesting as a digital preservation thing.
We have to be careful with planning restrictions and things, but there will be a plaque to go on the wall to explain what it is, and then to refer people to our website to find out more information. But at the moment, it's just a brick wall, and hundreds of people walk past it and have no idea what's there.
Yeah. How do you plan to reach other people besides digitally? Preserving this. How do you want to spread the stories of this
So I've
wall?
got a slide there, number 7, showing us at an outreach session. We have a maritime bus that we can customize the content and take it to events.
Wow.
So you can see there's some children playing with a water tray that has got a map of the south coast of England and the Normandy beaches. And there's like a Lego type landing craft there, and they can sail them backwards and forwards and load them up with the men. And at the same time, they're looking at the photos of the real events. So it's just kind of gently absorbing what had happened. There's a quiz the families can take if we're there. They can try and find certain names on the wall. There are blank bricks for the kids to fill in what they would have written if they were in that situation.
Wow.
There's also a geocache. So a lot of visitors come in on the cruise ships, and then they go off and find geocaches to explore stuff about the city. Right. Public talks have a whole series, and exhibitions as well. Oh, and school workshops. Oh. And if you have a little look at the 13, cool. You see the children at the wall, and I give them a card with a photo on of the man and the inscription, and they have to find it and then trace their fingers over so they can feel how he carved his name.
Wow.
And I'll tell you a bit more about that later on.
Yeah, sure, no problem. But that's really, really cool. I think this is it's a very good approach, especially for I imagine the elementary schools there being very interested in this project. Well, I assume that, but I'm not sure if that is actually so. But
yeah, they studied World War II at about age 10, so this ties in quite well. And that group there you saw, they were studying World War II, so they asked us to come in and talk about this. And they actually walked past that wall like every day to go to school. They didn't know what it was.
Wow, that's even more interesting. Wow. You know, I find it very interesting that you studied archaeology. I imagine. I did too for 3 days. I always say a week, but my friend says 3 days. He corrects me because I decided to quit after 3 days, and then I just did history. But I always wanted to do archaeology because I was so interested in World War II archaeology, but then realized that all the field trips you had to do and all the other works was just the ancient times or the Middle Ages, and I didn't like that. That's probably I don't know if that's the same in the UK, but that's not where we're supposed to talk about it. But I always, everything that's conflict archaeology related gets my attention. So this is
yeah, me too.
This is super interesting. I was in Luxembourg 3 weeks ago and came past this tree that I've known quite some while. Oh, I think my thing is. Oh, there we go. And I've known this tree for, I guess, 5 years at least, 6 years, 7 years, and there's even a little panel on it saying that there's an inscription of a soldier in there, and I've never really taken my time to research it because I wasn't into research as much as I'm now when I first saw it. And so when I was there 2 weeks ago with a friend of mine, I realized, hey, maybe I should do some research, because I think it was a week after or some days after we spoke, or I found some of your names on the wall, and so I researched the guy on the tree, and I found a picture of him, and I found the whole story about how he was killed a couple of days later after carving his name into the tree, and I'm like, that was just it just makes things so much more realistic or not realistic. It just brings you so much closer. It has such a closer connection with it.
Yeah, it becomes much more than just a carving.
Yeah, exactly. It's a I don't know how you would say it. It's not a monument. It's but it's I don't know. It's a living memory.
Mm-hmm.
It's talking about definitions is not another thing we should do today. But yeah, tell me about yourself. How did you are you interested in World War II? Did your family? I guess you have family that served in World War II.
Yeah, my granddad. I think you got a slide there. He was in the Royal Navy. He joined very young, and as soon as he finished his training, the war had broken out. He was assigned to HMS Queen Elizabeth.
He looks very young.
Yeah, he's really young in that picture. I'm not quite sure exactly how old he was. About 17, maybe.
Wow.
He was torpedoed on HMS Queen Elizabeth, and then also assigned to HMS Kipling, which was also torpedoed. But he spent the rest of the war mainly on kind of smaller craft and shore-based, so he survived. My husband's granddad, Jack, he met Pat there during the war. He was Royal Signals, a driver.
Wow.
He was taken prisoner of war in Africa. And Pat was on the anti-aircraft gun on the Predictors. So none of them talked about it much, but the bits they did tell me really kind of sparked my interest. And then I worked on some other local archaeology projects, recording World War II remains specifically. And that led me into joining a local veterans group, Project 71. We have about 18, 20 veterans come once a month for a meal. And then we take them to Normandy, Arnhem and Bastogne. Oh, wow. And so going with them to those places as well, I also got a lot more World War II stories. So that's really my main interest now, is recording and preserving these stories. Right. Does Project 71, like, they actively record the stories and put them somewhere on Indian? Most of them have been interviewed so extensively that it's elsewhere that we're not massively recording their stories, but, you know, taking them to their special places, putting memorials and monuments at their special places and visiting graves. You pick up all these stories, and I'm just writing bits and pieces down as we go. Wow. Yeah, I think it's always more fascinating to go on a trip with a veteran and actually visit the sites that he has seen. Most of the time, they might not remember it as much. Of course, things have changed over time, but it's definitely. They definitely have some very clear memories. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. Let's see. I saw some pictures in here of the D-Day build-up. This is all. Oh, yep. All of the guys. It's crazy how people don't realize this as much. It's a cool topic to talk about here. Is that we all focus on Europe and the battles. As you say, Normandy, Bastogne, Market Garden, Arnhem. But England was such an important part of the whole picture. You know, a lot of guys spend their time there. And I guess that's if we go back to Southampton. What maybe we should talk a little bit more about how Southampton was. I know it was a poor town, but it's like people don't realize how England, like, we have the whole coast, but we have all these different troops, all these thousands of troops that spend their time here, waiting to go to Europe, but you can't put them all in one place. So that's why, you know, especially like in England, I mean, just like in Europe, there's World War II history all over England, which is why this wall is so special. Yeah, it's amazing how much there is. Have you got that picture there of the street? So because they couldn't fit all these vehicles and things into all the camps, although we have lots of open space in the city, the vehicles just had to line the streets outside people's houses, waiting in the weeks in the building up to D-Day. Wow. And there's a picture there of the kids skipping and the Americans turning one end of the rope and just sitting around and having coffee and watching. And the people of Southampton really loved them because they had K rations, which included chocolate and sweets. And they used to give, you know, with their stuff. They were really generous with their food. And the people of Southampton were really suffering with rationing. And they hadn't seen chocolate, things like Coke were seen for the first time, Coca-Cola. So got any gum chums, what the kids used to say. And they used to say, got a sister, mister. And he used to take all the ladies to the dances. And so I think, in amongst all the tension, they did have some fun times too.
Right. Wow. Did your grandparents ever talk, I guess, like, did they ever told you stories like this? Or is it mainly...
No, not so much the sort of domestic stuff. I guess because they were away, they just came back when it had all finished. But there are lots of local oral histories that are really interesting. I've been looking into those too.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine they tell a lot about Southampton.
Yeah, I mean, especially the bombing. There was so much bombing; it was really destroyed the centre.
Oh, really? That's because Rotterdam, my home, I don't. It's not my hometown. It's like I live in a smaller town next to Rotterdam, and that whole city center was destroyed in May 1940s. My grandparents lived just on the outskirts, so they survived. But I just, when looking at these pictures, I can imagine how they were, what they were doing at that age, because they were around that age when they were liberated. So
yeah,
it's truly interesting. Wow. Did going back to the wall. We call it the American Wall, but are there any names from other people, other veterans in there, like that are not non-American?
Nope. Every single one I found is American.
Really?
Yeah, we have something called the Historic Environment Record, which is a little description of why this thing is protected. And it says that it's Americans and Canadians, but I've really not found a single Canadian.
Oh, really?
We did have a lot of Canadians that embarked on D-Day.
Right. Have you ever? But why did they put it? Why did they put it there? Were there ever Canadians in Southampton?
Yeah, lots of Canadians, and also a few Free French too, and Keeper's Commandos, Piper Bill Millin.
Okay, French.
They were left from here too.
Wow, that's quite interesting. But there are what I do know is that a lot of African Americans carved their names, or some carved their names into that. I mean,
yeah, we found. Let me check 9 now, because you kindly sent me that list, a passenger list, for the 449 Quartermaster's Gas Supply Unit. And going through that list, it was like Christmas. It's like, there's one, there's one, there's one. And so we got 9.
That was crazy. Because normally, I mean, it's also a unit that you like. It's such an unknown unit. I mean, a lot of these units that I've seen on there are such unknown units, men that you will probably never heard a story from, because they wouldn't have, take part in any kind of combat. But that is so cool. I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking through more research, just trying to find out more about that unit, and there's quite a bit about quartermasters,
right?
But nothing specifically about that unit that I can find out at the moment.
Right. Yeah, but what's really cool is I believe I don't think we have anything on them, but there's a Black Liberators project in the Netherlands. However, I don't think these guys were sent to the Netherlands, but I've tried to cross-reference their names, but we don't have anything on them. But yeah, I mean, if there's any names that I might crisscross or cross-reference some names with through this list that we have, or I might bring you. I think I have a good contact for you that you can ask for names.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you.
Because with this wall, we can also truly tell an interesting story about racism and the segregated part of the United States Army.
Yeah, the people of Southampton were quite mystified by the whole segregation process, and they just couldn't understand why this had to be. Really? And there were quite a few fights apparently where women had given the African American men some food or accepted something back, and all sorts of little scuffles are breaking out, I think, where people were breaking protocols because they just didn't understand it.
Right. Wow. That's interesting. Are you taking account of all of this in the research part, or?
Yeah, it's all going to be on the website. So we're writing articles on there to go on there as well, to explain more of the background kind of things, as well as the detailed stories.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I think it's how I see this. If I have to imagine the whole thing when it's finished, I can see the digital version of the wall. Let me try and open it up. Actually, that's maybe interesting. Okay. I guess I have to just click the link.
Put this up a year ago just so that we had something in time for the D-Day 75, and we really need to get back to it now to update it and remodel it slightly. That's my next aim.
That's pretty cool. Let me try and open this up. It's Maritime Archaeologist Trust org. Should have preloaded this, but hey. The wall itself. Is it? It's the link in the. Yeah, it's in there, but.
Or there's slide 6 if you just want to still.
Yeah, I'm there, but I'm trying. I tried to click the link, but it's not working for me. So, okay, there we go. It's loading now. It's pretty cool. The whole photogrammetry thing, it really gets you a good.
Yeah, so we did quite a lot of photogrammetry.
Here we go.
You were talking to was it Benjamin about how you can do artifacts and things.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a really good technique to be able to share things.
It's so crazy because I literally discovered the whole photogrammetry thing, and I was experimenting myself with it, and then I saw this and I was like, hey, they just did the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to zoom in on this wall, but my scroll function is not. That's my mouse problem. But it's. Can I see some names over there? I can see some names. Can I move around? No, hold on. I can't. Oh wait, yeah.
You should be able to.
With the
see what you can see at the moment.
I'm standing in front of the smaller wall.
Oh yeah, at the back. So those were the bricks that were saved from the houses that were opposite, and also a longer section of that wall did exist, but that was knocked down when the hotel was built. There's a hotel there now.
Wow.
So those bricks that were saved are built in behind into a smaller wall.
Wow. See a guy with, I mean, I don't see a name, but I see Baltimore, I think, on the smaller wall. 19.
There's one there to the left, Eddie Mayer. He's actually drawn a landing craft around his inscription, right on the edge on the left.
Is it on the smaller wall?
Yeah.
What was his name?
Eddie Mayer, Illinois, and he's dated it the 21st to the 7th, 44.
I don't think I see it. But that's okay. It's kind of fun.
Eddie was interesting, actually. His parents were German.
Really?
So you wonder what they felt about the war.
Wait, where? And his parents were living in Germany, or they were in?
No, they were living in Illinois. He was born in Illinois.
Okay.
They'd emigrated.
Oh, so he's a second generation immigrant. Wow. Yeah, that's funny because I got into I was researching a guy last week who was a second generation Dutch immigrant, and he had just come to the front lines on December 21st, 1944 in the Ardennes, and then was killed 10 days later, and buried in Belgium. So he never got to his mother's or parents' country, but yeah, pretty. I'm not able to share my screen here because I'm recording this, but yeah, it's been. I love this wall, and I really hope that that people will take a look at it and walk by. Where is it? Do you have an address? Because that's maybe when people.
Yeah. So if you just look up Southampton, you can see the waterfront, and there's a hotel there, Leonardo Royal Grand Harbour Hotel, and it's actually now the car park wall.
Leonardo.
Royal Grand Harbour.
Ooh. There you go. I think I saw a satellite image. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's right opposite the medieval walls, town walls, and just literally around the corner from the waterfront. This is why we think they were just waiting there when the docks were too busy and they had to just close the gates to clear, get the men on the ships and off.
Huh.
We just think they were waiting along this wall.
Right. Oh, now I see how close it is. Wow.
Mm.
I never really looked at this from this way.
That's why some people say, why don't you take it down and put it in a museum? But actually, you're kind of losing that link, because you can stand there and look and see the sea and understand and almost feel what they were thinking. But if you take that away, put that in a museum,
exactly.
You've lost it.
It's all about context. I think that's what I used to do a lot of metal detecting, and I don't regret it that I've done it, because I it made me at one point realize that, like, hey, I'm actually destroying a lot of evidence or context that is related with finds, and I'm not recording it, and I am not sharing the finds that I do and everything that comes with archaeology. So I understand that it's that you want it to stay there. Wow, that's so cool. I asked you. Well, I usually ask my visitors, to bring 3 things. We kind of talked about it already, but
yeah, we covered some bits. I can do a bit more.
Sure.
So the first thing I have was that photo of Delbert Smith. I think we pretty much covered that one.
Right, exactly.
So Delbert was one of 6 men who we know now were with 106th, and they were all 424 Regiment M Company, and they were all drivers. So that was quite interesting to find that link. And also looking back pre-war, they were all drivers too.
Really?
Yeah, it was really interesting.
That's huh. I'm wondering, they probably were waiting for some guys to pick up, or I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. The second thing was the documents. So I found 2 rosters, and then you sent me the passenger list. And so from those documents, I think there's about 6 pages. We've identified 21 names now. So 21 out of the 70 are now in document evidence as well. So that really ties them down to a unit, and then absolutely confirms they were in Southampton with dates, which is really interesting.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of. There's no, like, is there no. I mean, most of the names that are found on there, there's always guys that belong to the same unit that are carving the names together.
Yeah, they seem to have stood in groups as well. There are distinct groups. We're talking about the African Americans and the 449. Literally, they were in one group, and some of those names that are found on that list, I had actually down as 106, because they're duplicate names. I'm amazed how many duplicate names there are in America and same states. And crazy. You think you found one, you think, yes, it's him, he's on this list, he's next to somebody, but then another list comes up like yours, and you go, actually, that's not him, this is him now. He's with these people on this list. And there's the date. He had the December date in. I was thinking, why is someone from the 106 of that date? Because it was too late. So it's funny how you think you've got one, and then actually it turns out to be another.
Right. There are so many Jacksons, Johnsons, Smiths, Millers.
Yeah, amazing. And Eddie Mayer. There were so many Eddie Mayers from Illinois. Exactly. And he was actually identified by his handwriting on his draft card.
Oh, really?
So even though they carved this with an army knife, it's amazing how the little characteristics of their handwriting is preserved even on the brick.
Wow. That sounds.
So then the third thing I had, if we go back to number 13 with the school children at the wall, it's not much of a thing, it's a memory, as of some of the special visitors we've had. So that group of school children, they said they walked past this wall every day. They didn't know what it was. And there was this one boy, and his name was Curtis. I kept hearing the teacher say, Curtis, sit down, Curtis, do this. And I thought, right, I know which name I'm going to give him. I gave him Kurt Hodges. and he loved it. He found it and he was so excited. And I just know that boy now, it's always going to remember that name was on that wall.
Oh, wow, exactly.
He was just so enthused about it, and he said he was going to go off and learn lots about World War II. So that was really good.
Yeah,
and the other picture.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
The other picture there on that slide was the Greatest Generations came to visit on the 31st of May last year. They came into Southampton on the Queen Mary, and they were headed to Portsmouth for the D-Day 75 commemorations before going over to Normandy. And I managed to get in contact with them and say, hey, come and visit the wall on your way past. And they did. So none of them had actually left from Southampton. They'd all gone from Weymouth and Portland on D-Day. But they were pleased to, to see it was there and find out that we were remembering.
That's kind of funny. Yeah, that's cool. What I wanted to say is that I think it's important here, especially for future generations, kids, is that they should in some way be inspired. I think that is the way in how we can pass on history, especially project like this. It's always through the individual stories, and that boy now is inspired because of this wall and the project that you started. So that's really cool. And I always like to say that if you want to preserve history, then do something about it and make start your own organization or whatever, or just spread the stories and inspire other people with the stories.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. Thank you so much for telling all of this. I think the key part in identifying these names, because how many names are still unidentified?
There's about 15 that we just can't quite read them quite well enough to be able to look up. Right. So we have some more photographic techniques we can try.
Right.
And then hopefully we can work out what they are.
Right, but you also, is there a list online, a list of names that have been found, or a list of names that, you have identified the names
on the website when I can get onto that uploading, the big job of uploading all the research.
Right, but then if people want to help you research this, they can access the names and see which one of the guys have been identified, but also if their unit has been identified. So
yeah, I'm happy for anybody to help. If anybody wants to email me, I can get them set up with some names.
And also here, because that is what I think is one of the key parts in research and researching this is digitization of military records and archive material, because that is basically how I found the list. I just had a database that I use, and I typed some names. It's funny because I actually found Robert. What is his name? Golden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I typed his ASN, or I had an ASN, and I think that did not match, even though it was in there. So the text recognition had wrongly recognized the serial number. And then when I typed his full name, I had a match, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I first did not have a match with his serial number. So it's like digitization and text recognition is very important in stuff like this. So if anyone would like to help with this project, they should contact you.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I will put your email address or the link to the website in the description.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you so much again for coming out today and talking about this wonderful project. I will do my best to share this on my social media pages, and also to do some updates, because I'm looking forward to future updates.
Yes. Thanks very much, Joey.
Yes, thank you. All right. This is what podcast, SNAFU podcast number 7. Thank you.